right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to what is probably the most boring Monday I think I've seen since we got this president. But that's fine. Like I talked about last time, I think it was a pretty boring Monday too. Is this gives us time to prep, right? This is what you do. There's days that you go crazy trading, there's days that you sit on your hands and you try to come up with that next idea for when the market is a little bit more active. This feels like the kind of sit on the hands day. So, as always, what we're going to do is I'm going to rant at you guys for a little bit on some things that are in the move, some things that happened over the weekend or since I talked to you guys last. And you're going to fill up the chat that I've got right down here with all kinds of questions and symbols you want me to look at and all that. And we'll spend the latter half doing that. And I'll get to any and all questions that are asked throughout. So flood the chat, right? The more you guys are wondering, the easier it is for me to kind of go through and make sure that I'm covering everything. But first of all, I just want to let's talk about what I was when mentioning here when it comes to the spy. Where's the share screen? Here we go. The boomer's doing it. Right. This is I'll move this right here. So right here, where this pink line is, or this purple line, this is the opening in the SPY. You can see a little bit above the open, a little bit below the open. Now we're back above the open. I wonder if this is going to be the actual move now that we have had Trump on stage talking about a bunch of nonsense and then has left. Maybe we're going to finally get the move here. But I also want to show you guys, if we go to ES, all, and then we look at the futures, this shaded box. So the reason I shaded this particular box is because if you look right here, this is the opening candle on, and we put a little line there. All right, roughly in there. So that's like the open on Sunday night. And we are inside of all of Sunday night's range. So one kind of tip, one thing I like to do, it's fine normally to look at the SPY. It's fine normally to look at some of these ETFs on Mondays. I like to look at the futures just because it shows futures open up Sunday night. So you can see what all the trading was Sunday night. Sometimes you wake up and you look at the ETF and there's zero change and you go, oh, it's a boring day, but you didn't realize that like we gapped up Sunday night or gapped down Sunday night and then we've just been ripping or tanking all night, or there was some sort of crazy action. So the way I'm looking at it, as long as we're in this box, I don't really care about what's happening today in the market. I want to see a break through the box or a breakdown out of the box in order to give me some sort of signal. Another quick tip, if you're using TradingView, you don't want to pay for futures data, you can type in SP 500 and this will give you roughly the same chart. You can see right here. So this is the CFD. I can explain it if someone asks, but a CFD is just a way that generally international people get exposure to US markets, and it'll trade roughly the same as the future. And for you can do NAS 100 for the NASDAQ and get the Pepperstone ETF for that. You can grab, there's all kinds. They call them weird names though. So US 30 is the Dow, XAU USD is gold, XAG USD is silver. Pretty much everything there's a futures contract for, there's one of these CFDs for. And if you want to just do some charting, you don't have to pay them for the futures data in order to get that. So now that we're done looking at the SPY, we say, we're just stuck in the range here. Maybe, right? This little pink shaded area, this is today's high. Maybe we're getting through that. I wouldn't surprise me if we hit that and then shot right back down, but we're range bound. So again, I'm not interested. I haven't even looked at a lot of my swings today. I haven't even really looked at most things today because we're not doing anything. We're just sideways chopping. We're just hanging out inside of this particular range right here, not doing anything. Now for Bitcoin, things get a little bit more interesting. So Sunday night or Monday morning, I guess you could say, we had this big push. Now this to me feels like a liquidation break, which just means a bunch of people are short. Those people are having a bad time. We're starting to push up, but then we've retraced that. So now I want to see, do we find support at where this was and start to float up initially? Because this daily chart looks very interesting to me. You could just draw out this very simple range right here. And it looked like we were falling down, right? This was the end of days. And now we're back above that price. And if you look at the positioning data, the average large institution is still short Bitcoin here. So they've covered a little bit, but they're still net short Bitcoin. So there's still potential short squeezes to come here in the Bitcoin space. Also, I didn't cover it, but we can go here. Also, the reason I like to do these on Mondays, because the data comes out every week, they didn't really cover anything last week at all. So still very, very short the ES or the S&P 500 here. All right, let's start to go and take a little bit of a look. I just wanted to go over some sectors that are interesting. Of course, we have lithium just ripping. So you can see that in things like LAC. That's popping up here. SQM, right? A lot of these things are moving. Lit is just kind of a nice ETF for it, but a lot of lithium names are ripping. So keep an eye on Tesla, keep an eye, which is breaking out of this range. Keep an eye on maybe Rivian, anything EV kind of related is doing pretty well today. On top of that, we have PSIL. So I did a whole video about this. You can find it on my feed here at StockTwits. I'm really watching PSIL above this range. Spoiler alert, I own some, so I'm not pumping my bags here, but I'm looking to see if this breaks out so I can add a big chunk there to my psychedelics position. And a lot of this I think is going to move in sympathy with this. So this is MSOS, your marijuana sector. There was some chatter. I was looking at some news that came out of the Trump speak. There was some chatter about him making a decision fairly soon on rescheduling marijuana. That has this pop going on. I wonder if we are going to see this buy into the reschedulization of it, and then as soon as he reschedules it, he goes, okay, now it's a class, whatever. That's better. That's the sell the news event. So I'm long some of this MSOS. I'm actually long MSOX for those who are really crazy. There's a triple leveraged or double leveraged, I think, MSOS ETF. I'm long some of it as kind of in this area as we started to break out here. Not looking for this to ever get back to like $1,000 or whatever, but if it can bounce into like 10 or 12, I'm going to be very, very happy camper with the amount that I have. So we just got to see. We're going to see a lot of individual sectors. So if you look over here, as I scroll through this, this is the sector list that I watch. You can see some red, some green, some red, some green, just to show that because the market is range bound, doesn't mean that everything is range bound. Like XLV has been doing pretty well today. Our healthcare has been doing pretty well. And then we have ITA or defense that is down today. We have steel that's down today. We have KRE or regional banks that are trying to make higher. So some up, some down. And then here on the headlines, we have the SPY up, but RSP not really doing too much. Oh, nice little breakout there in the SPY. So RSP is the equal weighted index. And the fact that that's not participating in this market is not what I'd like to see. I would like to see them move in conjunction or together. But again, I'm not seeing that. Not seeing that at all. So I see some things have popped in here. We'll take a look here. So first of all, AI, C3 AI. Awful, I guess, is the best way to describe this from kind of a swing trading. You have this area right here, this kind of $18 area. Whatever they said. Oh, so they reported earnings, even though earnings, according to TradingView here, they missed guidance by 33%. Ooh-wee. So obviously negative. Obviously, this $18 has been a big area for C3AI, and we're now under that for now. Right? We could bounce maybe a little bit off of this zone, but so far we are under this particular zone that I think is important because it was support back here. And then it was also support right here. So some value investing nerds seem to be buying around $18. Now, today's candle alone, this is very interesting, right? I like the fact there's this saying that's happened over and over and over again. And I think it's very, very important is that amateurs open the market and professionals close it. And it's not meant to disparage anyone, but it just means that if you are scalping the first opening 10 minutes of the market, you're like a day trader, right? And it's, again, nothing wrong with I day trade. There's nothing wrong with being a day trader. But it's just saying that you're not getting giant hedge funds, right, trading on the open and day trading those things, right? Those guys will buy throughout the day and they'll buy a lot onto the close, but they don't have the ability just to fill their orders on the open the way that everyone else does because they're just too big. They would push it around too much. So the fact that we opened up right here and it's been pretty substantial buying the entire day back up to around this $17-18 a share zone. I like that, right? I wouldn't, maybe if it reclaims this 18 bucks, you take a shot and then your stop goes here. That's a pretty wide stop. So you always got to draw these things out to see if the risk reward makes sense. So say we close above 18 today and then our stop goes way down here. It's what, a 20% potential loss. And then if we think it's going to get back to here, that's a 3-to-1 risk reward. That's pretty good, right? It's not awful. I don't think it's something that I would personally do just because I don't like to fade things that are down like that. I like to have some evidence that there's some bottom coming in. But I see the merit there. It's in the right space. It has AI in the name, of course. But it has certainly been the dog of the AI space. So I would just watch 18 bucks. You can play a simple game. If we're above 18 bucks, I'm going to buy it with a $15 stop or something like that. And if the buyers come in heavy after a move like this, then great. Maybe you have a nice little push up over time from here. But obviously, they don't like it, right? Another thing that I always like to talk about is it's not the news. The news doesn't matter. It's what is the reaction to the news because that tells us what was expected. So if the reaction to the news is positive and it's bad news, well, great, right? It means that they were expecting worse news. Or if the reaction is negative and it's good news, then that's also great information because it means they were expecting better news. INTC. So Intel, again, another dog, right? I've been talking about these low bases a lot. I've been talking about these low bases kind of in frame of, hey, I really like these, right? I used Owlet. I think last time we were talking about these a lot for examples. Stocks that didn't die, that looked like they were going to die. They were essentially priced for bankruptcy, and then they didn't die, and now they're on their way back up. I like that, but I only like them on the way back up. With Intel, it's kind of priced as if it's done. Maybe not bankrupt, but just saying, hey, this is a company that's really no longer going to grow. It's no longer going to do any of these things. It's going to just kind of chop around sideways here for a while. And maybe they think that this is the current price. It wasn't 80 bucks. It's a fourth of that at 20. Okay, that's fine. Now, what we're looking for is some signal that we're going to break out of this base. So basically, I don't think you need to be early because what are you missing from trying to buy the bottom here or where it is right here to the top of the base? You're not going to be missing too much. Where is my drawing tool? Hello, there it is. You're missing 20%. Well, if you're right and this thing kind of recovers and becomes like a king of the industry again, it's going to go up to test all-time highs at some point. That's 200%. So do you want the 200% or are you okay with the 165%? Because like I talked about, I'll try not to do the whole rant that I gave last week, but the idea is that I hate dead money. And we'll use this for example. I've been watching this stock for ages because I bought some of this product and I noticed that the stock was hammered and it had FDA problems that are now resolved. So my theory being that if it just bounces back a little bit of the $150 to $2, if it bounces back into the 20s or 30s, could be a great trade considering I got in the fives and the sixes. The but I didn't get involved here. And the reason for that is this is almost as bad to me, or sorry, this is worse to me than losing money because if you take a trade and you're wrong and you lose money, you take a haircut, you move on with your day. If you're in a stock that's doing nothing for years, you've just missed your opportunity to potentially do something else with. So I only want something like Intel when there's some sort of evidence that potentially we're going to break out of the space. The other thing I like about it is it makes the trade very, very simple. It makes it incredibly easy to do. Where you take Intel, you take the high of this base, you say it's 26 bucks. It's okay. Above 26 bucks, I like Intel. Below 26 bucks, I don't like Intel. So maybe you buy it here and you're looking for it to start to trend higher and you put a stop, 22 or 23. There's your risk. And you say, hey, if we get any kind of, if we're back inside this base and we start closing regularly inside this base, it's time to go. So you want to see that breakout and then the continuation from it. And unlike something like this, like there was a chance for this name that someone comes along and buys them. It's a tiny, tiny little company. It's like no one cares. It's $140 million company. It's nothing. Literally, like goes bankrupt tomorrow, and nobody cares. So there was a chance that someone came along, and when this thing was at $2, they bought it out for 5, and I just missed my trade. And that's okay. You got to be okay with that. But with Intel, you got to think what is going to happen to make Intel like gap through this price and like be up 50% overnight, and then you're kicking yourself in the butt saying, "Oh, I should have bought it earlier." Nothing, right? There's really nothing that's going to, what a nice word from Trump. Like, is that probably going to be the only thing that moves something like this? So I would just look at it and say, listen, you're in no rush with names like this. Now, maybe you're a dividend guy and you're saying, well, it's a pretty nice dividend here. So I'm just going to buy it. I'm going to put a stop maybe under these lows and I'm just going to buy the dividend. I think Intel has probably found something resembling a bottom. I just don't know how long it's going to stay there before it starts making its trend. Coin, I love Coinbase. I own Coinbase, just full disclosure. I bought it from right here where we broke out of this cup and handle. I'm looking at this and I'm looking at things like Hood. A lot of these kind of cup and handle plays look great. Coinbase is going to be much more tied to what's happening in Bitcoin world than anything else. So I like this name. I just like the ownership. I like the stock overall. I think this is a good one. However, this gap down on earnings isn't great. So from here, maybe we're doing a little bit of just a U pattern and we're going to break through this candle and try to close the gap. That's great if that's going to happen. And then back to highs. But I would just look at this and say, right, we're struggling up against this 380 to 400 zone. So you could wait for that to break out if you're a little bit short-term nature. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying maybe a break of this candle's high and then you're putting your stop down there and seeing if this trend continues. Now, to do that, you're going to also need to bet that Bitcoin is moving higher as well, which I like. I think we're definitely, as long as we hold above this prior high right here, we're doing well. This topping tail is not ideal. We've had a big move to get up to that zone. But if we end up holding this area, that's great. You can see a lot of red here on the crypto side of things. There's not a lot of names that are doing very well. Right? Pepe's down, Peanuts down, Dog in a Cat World, Shibu, all these meme coins are kind of getting hit against, even Pengu, which has been, what am I doing with my life? Pengu has been showing relative strength, and that's down. So at the same time, you want to bet that Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, at the very least, are moving higher because, of course, if the cryptocurrency is moving higher, that's going to be good for Coinbase's bottom line because they're making money, right? So if Coinbase is doing well from kind of a bottom line, that's going to be better for them if the cryptos are moving, if people are buying them, if those animal spirits exist. because when crypto sells, they don't make any money, right? They make less money, we'll say. So keep an eye on Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and the big guys in general. And just for me, short term trade above that candle, long term trade, I'm going to wait until we can kind of get back through, close this gap. And then they may add to my position. My original position, I kind of bought in this space right here. When we had a break of that, I was hoping this would just do a Robin Hood and rip right through. But so far, not a good one. So let's take a look what next here. I'm going through the list. EVGO. Well, that's convenient. EVGO's name is EVGO. So it just settles it. So you don't have to look at what it does. They're just going to do EV stuff. I'm assuming they're going to do EV stuff. Retail, specialty stores. Nope. Okay. I didn't get, losing money, missed earnings, but didn't get really hammered because of it. Makes me think that whatever they said on their conference calls is holding things up, which is overall a positive thing. And then I look at it and say, okay, you got this little descending triangle look. You've got a pretty clear support zone at this 325 to 350 area. But every time they try to rally it, a seller comes in. So, right, that to me is one of my favorite patterns, not meaning that it's just going to go up from here because nobody knows that, but just saying that if we break this downtrend line and start to push up into the 375s, $4 areas, we could get a little bit of a push. And then we're just riding against this zone right here. But very range bound, especially if you zoom out. Right, there's nothing here that looks like a clean line in the sand that says something to the effect, oh, if it breaks this zone, then we'll start moving. There's nothing really like that that's getting super exciting. We're kind of stuck inside of this range. So if we can break out of this zone, I'd want to see a pretty quick move higher. I would also, because they're losing money, I would look at things like runway, cash runway, because if you're in something that's losing money, you got to raise money at some point, and probably going to be off the back of the retail holders, unless there's something that's going to happen. If this thing has 3 years of runway and a plan to get out of it, then yeah, that's one thing. But if it's nothing is kind of happening, and they have no way to potentially make any money, and there's no way to get out of this losing money that they're in, well, the money's got to come from somewhere eventually. And generally speaking, it will come from retail traders. Cartoon Studios. Very likely a zero. Very likely going to zero. It was $100 and is now 66 cents. Remember, if your stock cannot get over $1 on its own accord, then it has to do so through financial shenanigans, which means reverse splitting and doing crazy things with its float and trying to play games and trying to do all kinds of weird stuff to get that, to keep being uplifted or uplisted, it's called. It could certainly get downlisted, in which people go, yeah, I can't, these guys can't recover. And because they can't recover, there's just no action to kind of take place here. So often you can see last time it happened is right here. This is the last time they had to do a split, which is why I say it's probably going to zero, because if you have to do a reverse split to stay listed and then your stock just craters, and then you have to do another reverse split to stay listed and your stock craters, and so on and so forth, then you get this, right? And last time they announced the reverse split, the thing went from $7, got cut in half almost immediately. So an announcement like that is coming, unless whatever they have happening on earnings really changes the game and it starts to trade back above a buck. Then if it starts to trade back above a buck, then you might be onto something, because now everyone's kind of priced in that this company has to do this reverse split shenanigans again, and are selling it because of it. Well, if that changes, and that changes here, well, that's could be cause a little bit of a push higher. Now let's take a look here at MULN is the example I wanted to give. Whoa. Did they change their name? Did they really? That's hilarious. This is the ultimate king of this. I did the math once. This is like $5 quintillion a share, and now it's a buck. And they rate reverse split tank, reverse split tank, reverse split tank. There's people who actually invest in this thing, which is just crazy. Every now and then, like a chat room picks it up and it goes crazy on its way to zero. So anytime you see this pattern of we have to reverse split to stay listed, tanks, so on and so forth. For me, it's a complete stay away, but that's entirely up to you. I'm not your dad. I got enough kids. AMD, really interesting action that's happening. I drew that trend line a while ago, so we'll get rid of that. It came all the way back up to this prior resistance. This is the area that people sold to cause this sell off. Came back there and did what I think is perfect. This is exactly what I want to see happen. Is you get back to a prior resistance zone, and you consolidate there. You chop back and forth very nicely, and then you kind of go from there, right? The this area right here, you just chop sideways back and forth. And when you break through that zone, that ends up being good trade. I don't like it when stocks just hit in a major area of resistance like that and just slice through like butter. It shows that it might not have been because there's an overwhelming supply there. It could have simply just been a lack of demand, which is right, totally possible, right? That you just have a lack of demand at this area. But the fact that it keeps butting its head up against it means there's probably still some supply there, but the buyers are doing a good job of just eating through it. So through 180, I think this is a good looking bull flag. Worst case stop, you could put this kind of 156. You could probably put 169 or so. This one looks really nice, and we see Nvidia just continuing its grind higher. New all-time high today for Nvidia again. You can't stop it. Surf Air. Surf Air. SFRM. That's the one. The rest of these ones have been doing crazy, right? The Joby has just been on fire. The ACHR has been doing great. So SRFM, this one looks like it could continue. I like that it's selling off and digging in here. I'll put a VWAP at this low. Yeah, so this is what's interesting. So this is an anchored VWAP. So this is the average price of the average market participant buying from this significant low right here. And you can see it acted as support right there very well. And now it's kind of acting as a resistance area. So I would watch this, call it 17 or 480 ish. If you can get back through 480, that's where I'd probably get involved with a stop under whatever the low is, that swing low at the time. If we can get back through there, it ends up being a pretty good risk reward play. And again, always draw these things out. So if we're buying here and our stop's going to go roughly there, and we're saying, hey, if this gets back to this prior high, that's a 6-to-1 risk reward. If it just gets in this area, that's a 2-to-1 risk reward. Then you just start doing the math of how likely you believe that you're going to be right on it. And if you're right half the time at all, it's a great trade to be, what you're saying is that 50% of the time you're going to say make $2,000, and 50% of the time you're going to lose $1,000. Well, the question is, that's obviously a game that will make you money in the long run. The question is, are you just sizing yourself appropriate that when you do enough of these coin flips, then eventually you end up doing well. That's actually one that I'm going to add here to a list. I love that I do this, and right, I go through and I sometimes add some of these names to lists. So above, let's say 480 on SRFM, I like the look of it. Then also you can just do things in your charting platform, right? You can just right click on this and say, all right, we're just going to call this just buy SFRM view app break. Is this one heavily shorted at all? SFRM. SRFM. Short interest. Oh, yeah. Wow. So this is interesting. So this chart right here is the chart of the short percentage, like how short people are. You can see it was sitting around 10, kind of roughly in this area. But then as it started, we're talking this $2, $3 area. And then as it started to launch, they started to get more and more short all the way to 20%. So they've been adding to their shorts. It's probably in this area around $5 or so. So right now they're doing fine, and they're just betting that this thing's gonna just tank. And there's no reason for a squeeze right now. But if we break that anchored view app we said that was around 480, if we start to break that and push higher, well, we know they've been getting short kind of in this zone right here. So as we start to push higher, if we start to push higher, those people are going to get more and more underwater. They're going to have a worse and worse time. So yeah, I really, really like that. IONQ. IONQ. The quantum names were interesting today. Yeah, a lot of these look great. I had that drawn out as a cup and handle, but that was a long time ago. So probably looking something like this. That look again very, very cup and handly to me. You have this big pullback from $50, right? You have a 70% pullback on this name, and it comes back up to those prior highs. Just like I said with AMD, I like it when they hit a resistance area and then just start to grind around that just to show that there's this battle going on, and it's very clear where that zone is battling. And then through that zone, then we have that resolved, and we can start to grind higher after that. So that's, yeah, it's a really good look there on IONQ. STI. Probably this one. Awful. Right, D-SPAC'd at 500. Oh, it had to do a reverse split, so it had to play that game. That's what I was talking about, the 1 for 50. So we're down 99.5% from its highs. Are they bleeding money? Maybe, yes. So we're right at this support if you want to take a shot against this, but anything that is down 99.5%, you should start to worry about. There's probably a reason. Right? That's not some, what do the kids say, a short ladder attack or whatever that games they make up for why their stock sucks. Again, this one becomes an interesting thing where it's a financial conglomerate, which is funny. What are they going to do to change the game? Right? It's a $9 million market cap company. Yeah. So yeah, what are they going to do to get themselves out of this? Because if we break down this base, they have to do another reverse split, and they just did a 1 for 50, which is a whopping name. Also, average daily volume of 45,000 shares. Be careful. It means that there's no real interest in the name either. I think volume is important to look at because volume equates to interest and whether or not people are interested in the name that you're trading. I think that's important. I think it's important to keep an eye on. You could have the best company in the world, but if no one cares, it's not going to go up, right? The only swan here is a swan graphite. This on the TSXV. Yeah, be very careful on anything on the TSX Venture. Open. I'm interested in this. I actually bought some right here, and then thankfully got a ping from my broker, because Interactive Brokers like emails you if you're holding something that has earnings. Said, "Hey man, it's at earnings." So I got back out. I'm still watching this, right? And the reason for that, I think I talked about this last week, but if you weren't here for it, if you look at open door right here, if you look at the short float, they haven't covered yet. They shorted, and it got all the way up to a 24% short float. And they short it right in this area, we can see, because as this line moves higher, it means people are shorting more and more. Well, the line started its uptick at a buck. So most of the shares are trapped short somewhere between $1 and 50 cents. So the fact that we ripped up to $4 means that a lot of those positions are down 400 to 800%. It's it's pretty big. And now they're short, or they're down anywhere between 100 to 200%. And then on top of that, we're not dying the way they want us to. They want it to go right back down. So I like the look of this one, right? If it can kind of break out of this very simple bull flag looking pattern. I'm not a huge cup and handle inverse horseshoe whatever dude, but I like basic things that make sense to me intellectually, like bull flags. Bull flags make perfect sense. You have a stock that moves higher, and then it doesn't crash, so it either consolidates sideways for a while, or a slight little downtrend but nothing crazy, and then you look for a resumption of that trend. And open looks great to me. If we can end up getting through that, and then potentially going to $5 or something, would be great. That'd be a double. If we get through that, again, you've got that short group, right? We know a lot of people are short this name. So if you have those people that short, makes me think that there's something afoot. You get Reddit picking it up or something like this. This could be $5 easy. I like that one. So I'm going to add that as well to my list here. PSN, Parsons Corporation. To be honest, I don't really see anything there. This looks like a very prolonged bear flag. It's slowly grinding up to try to fill its gap, but there's just nothing I see here from kind of a trade idea. A nice little uptrend on the short run, big downtrend on the long run. When you get those trends not agreeing with each other, I just look at it and go, next, right? ALTS Alt 5 Sigma Corporation. Wow. That's fancy sounding. $10, right? It's hit $10 here, and then it fell all the way to 21 cents. Then it came back to $10. Then it fell down to $6. Now it's back to $10 again. So I think if this can get and hold through $10, maybe an interesting little push here. It's had 41 million shares done today. Wow. I haven't even heard of this thing before. It's never getting back to 1,200 a share, just FYI. That's more of that reverse split shenanigans. Just when you look at that, just take those numbers completely out of the equation. I know a lot of people will kind of get anchored to those numbers and say, well, it was $1,000 a share of stock. Maybe it gets back there. No, not in years and years and years and years. So over 10 though, it's a really interesting area, right? 10 could get you 12. I don't really know what was the high of that spike. 23. Something makes me think a reverse split happened somewhere around here that's not being recorded. But yeah, I like it over this kind of $10 area. Pretty simple. Lift, LIFT. Is it L? Are you talking about this TSXV one? Yeah, again, be careful of anything on the TSX. V. For those who don't know, I'm Canadian, so I do know. The TSXV is like the pink sheets for you guys. It's the stocks that are not good enough to be listed anywhere else. They just can't. They can't get uplifted into, for us, the TSX. So it's like, you're not even a good enough company to be on the Nasdaq. Is what we're looking at on the pink sheets. So you're on the pink sheets, you can't get up to the Nasdaq. It just means your company's not great. Now, it does happen where you get a company that kind of comes out of nowhere. It's got something new and innovative, and it makes it through. It's such a hard game because you have these companies that are losing money. This one's losing pretty significantly, and you're basically making the bet that whatever it is that they're going to do is going to offset. Like eventually, it's going to turn positive before they have to dilute you into the ground. That's the that's the idea. Because when you're losing money, again, I say it all the time, you have to get it somewhere. You have to get that money somewhere. And in most of the cases, especially these small companies, they're going to get it off the back of you, right? They're going to get it off the back of retail, right? So I see a couple more here, and we're going to take a quick look at the market after that and then go from there. UNH, I'm starting to really like UNH here. I bought a little bit on an initial play down here, and then I sold a little bit of it. And then as we kind of broke down into this base, I covered the rest. So it was nothing, right? A little tiny trade. But if we can get back through kind of this line I have highlighted, this gap right here, that may show that the worst is over for this name. Maybe. It's a big risk. Anything that is having problems with the government, it's a big risk. You're taking that on yourself. You can see the short float's grinding higher. It's nothing significant, but the short float is moving higher. You're taking a pretty mighty risk on something like this because think about, you have a potential earnings report on this name every night. And potential is in you don't know when it's going to happen. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you're going to have, right, DOJ has found this, and this company is going to be liable for that. And then you're going to get a 5-10% gap down. And then the other way, you're going to get a 5 to 10% rally when things are happening the other way, right? Where you have a push higher, right? And one of those things kind of occurs on either side, right? So look, SPY, I just wanted to show you guys this because I see it on another chart, but how hilarious is this, right? So again, remember this pink line, this purple line is the open. So we crash under the open, or sorry, over, under, over, back down. This is just a completely and utterly choppy kind of range bound market. So let's take a look at one more, and then we're going to call it because this market's not doing anything. And then hopefully tomorrow, when you guys come back to everyone's here, you'll get a little bit more action going on. But BTOG, Bit Origin. Yeah, same thing, right? Can't stay, right? 250 down to 10, down to 5. There's a lot of bag holders in this. So I'm not interested in any name like this. Again, I'll go back to, again, not to pump this thing or anything, but just go back to, this is how me personally, I like to buy bottoms, is big, long bases that push higher. Like one name that I'm not in right now, but I'm stalking, is RIVN, because there was like 3 or 4 EV companies that went bankrupt, right? It was Lodestone, who's Ride, ticker Ride, Lordstown Motors, I think it was. There was Polestar. Did that one go bankrupt? There's a handful of these smaller EV companies that completely went under. Won't even talk about Nikola, right? That was a scam. And this one was kind of priced the same way, right? It launched at $200, and then it went to as if it was going to go bankrupt, as if this company is really not going to exist anymore. So if this starts to resolve itself higher, this is how I'm going to look to buy bases. This is what I want to do when it comes to bases. And I said last one, we'll do one more real quick. Maps. This is weed maps. So it's a company that you use to find weed, right? So this is moving purely in sympathy with what's happening here at MSOS, and it's underperforming. Yeah, Fisker was the other one I was thinking of. That was the one that MKBHD guy killed, right? Uh, Maps. So it's interesting. So I like this one because of it kind of looks like that Rivian or the Owlet or all these different names we were talking about, where this one's been consolidating sideways for a while. Like, I don't want it to be construed that these low bases, I just don't want a little bit of a low base and then a sideways chop, right? I want a low base and then like a year, or in this case, this is 2022 back here. So you're talking 2.5, 3 years. Now, the high of this base is 160. So it could. You see, it didn't have to do any of this reverse split shenanigans. You know, it was a $10 stock that went to 20 when everyone loved marijuana, and then it went down to 60 cents, but they were able to stay alive. These are the turnaround stories that are really interesting to me because right, it was priced as if it was going out of business, and it didn't just yet, right? So I would do the same thing. Oh, they're making a little bit of money, so they may not need to raise off the back of you. So this I like. I'm going to add this one. I think I have 3 added to my list now, but I'm definitely going to add this one. I'm actually just going to put out an alert at this high so I don't forget. And that's how you do it. I'm not going to watch this one until then. I already have enough marijuana exposure I talked about with my MSOX. But then maps, this might be another one to add to it. Again, I really like the look of it, but these bases need to resolve higher, or sometimes they jump the gun a little bit if they look like they're going to resolve higher. But I need more of one day action to occur. Again, my worry with the whole marijuana sector is we're going to get this rip leading up to the reclassification or declassification or whatever it is, and then it's going to happen and we're going to fall apart immediately. So all right, guys, last little word here. Look at this candle, right? We are right at our opening price. We put in a little bit of a high, a little bit of low, nothing's happened. We are sitting right at our opening price. If we look at the futures and we go to like a 30-minute chart, we've done absolutely nothing the whole time. So just not a day to swing for the fences. It's a day to make your plans, try to figure out what it is you're going to trade tomorrow or the next day when this kind of area resolves one way or another. So appreciate you all for coming by. And until I talk to you next time, probably on Friday, I'll talk to you then. But I know they've got a whole bunch of cool people lined up for this week.